Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are Zooming from. We're so glad to have you here for the Berkshire's High Peaks Festival. My name is Carolyn Regula, and I will be your host today and for the festival events. All of our events are being recorded, and you will be able to watch them after they air on the Close Encounters with Music YouTube channel. Please consider supporting Close Encounters with Music and our ongoing festival, the Berkshire's High Peaks Festival. The mission of Close Encounters with Music is to engage the imagination of concert audiences in a welcoming setting, to connect listeners to performers and composers, and foster the excitement and sense of community that live performance builds, to establish a comfortable listening environment, and to turn performances into enriching, educational, and uplifting experiences. I will be including a donation link in the chat below. You can use the chat to talk amongst yourselves during today's masterclass. And at the bottom of your screen, you will also see a Q&A option where you can submit questions for our guest instructor today if you would like. So today, we have a great treat for you all. We have a violin masterclass with our faculty member, Peter Zazofsky. Peter Zazofsky has enjoyed a career as a soloist, chamber music, and educator that spans 20 years and 30 countries on 5 continents. He has performed with many great orchestras, including the Boston Symphony, the Berlin Philharmonic, the Philadelphia Orchestra, and has collaborated with conductors, including Seiji Ozawa. Currently, Peter Zazofsky is on faculty at the College of Fine Arts at Boston University. So it is with great joy that I turn the mic over to Peter for the class.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or evening. This is the second year that we have done a class online. And of course, it's a special situation when we are able to reach people in disparate time zones and countries. I'm particularly pleased about that opportunity to really reach across the world for these classes. Last night, I was working with violinists in China and Korea, people who would not necessarily have found their way to the Berkshire School for our festival in the so-called normal times. But we are still able to talk about and improve our music making and bring a community, a sense of community to the entire music world. So it's a great pleasure to be with you this morning, wherever you are. And I believe that we're going to start this class with Douglas Zhang playing Mendelson Concerto, the portion of the Mendelson Concerto. Douglas is a student of mine, and we've been working for 1 year. So I believe that this will now be shared with you. And at a certain point, the video will be stopped so that we can talk about the Mendelson Concerto. Okay, very good. Douglas, congratulations for your first masterclass experience. Since we have people tuning in from many countries and areas of the world, I think it'd be good for them just to get a sense of your age, first of all, and where you go to school.
Okay. I'm 14 and I'm going to BB&N in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Right. It's a Buckingham Brown and Nichols School in the Boston area. Right. And you're 14. And so this is a concerto that you've been studying for quite a few months now. Right. I can't remember when is our first lesson on this, but it's been a while. And I'd like to talk to you about some things that we've already talked about. First of all, the Mendelson Concerto. It's a piece that everybody knows and everybody plays, and that, in some sense, that familiarity, almost over familiarity, creates a situation where it's hard for young musicians to listen to the piece in a fresh manner. I remember studying it when I was older than you. I was not 14. I think I was something like 17 or 18 when I was able to finally, 16. I studied at 16, and I learned it the way my teacher, Mr. Galamian, wanted me to learn it. And that was with a kind of standardized bowings, and particularly the bowings. And so it was quite a surprise to me many years later when a very dear friend and mentor by the name of Malcolm Frager sent me a copy of the manuscript. So some of the bowings that you were playing today, Douglas, they originate with my receiving that score of the Mendelson Concerto in his own hand. And the version that he sent to me was not a completed version. It was a version that was transitional. In other words, there were some things in there which Mendelson later decided not to include in his final edit of the piece. But when I saw his handwriting and I saw the choices that Mendelson had made, as opposed to the final version, it energized my interpretation and my imagination to see Mendelssohn's hand, literally the handwriting of Mendelson in this score. And I'm not sure, but I believe you can probably look that up on IMSLP now, where you can see Mendelssohn's transitional version of the concerto. So included in that was the bowing that I was asking you to do, which is this. You see, as opposed to, which is what I always learned. It was very smooth. But when I saw what was on the page, which was this, that bowing, and very interestingly, this. You see, as opposed to, which is the way I always learned it, and the way many people still learn it. So when I play this, or you play this, what struck me about that is that it adds a more conversational aspect to that phrase. In other words, less sing-songy and more, a little bit more conversational, which means it has more diction and more consonants in it. It's not just vowels. See, when I listen to this, it's all vowels. But since Mendelssohn intended, I was intrigued by that. And then, of course, once the soloist stops and plays the octaves, what does the orchestra do? Which is exactly the same bowing, but in forte. So for that reason and others, I adopted this bowing that I saw in the manuscript. Now, the difficulty with that is that in a sense, it goes against the natural situation with the bow, being that the frog is heavy and the tip is lighter. So if you start, what it requires is for you to be able to play strong at the tip and lightly at the frog. And I think that's a very worthwhile skill. But there are students, fortunately not you, Douglas, who are unable to do that, and they'll end up and they'll play heavy at the frog. But the fact is that that B is a weak beat. You see, so the strong beat is and strong beat, and then singing, and then a weak beat, and then strong beat. So this is a bowing which can be very effective, but it means that the violinist must have good training to not make the frog sound too heavy. Now, fortunately, you're long past that, and you've understood that over the time we've worked on it together. Now, we are going to have you play a little bit. One of the things that I want to encourage you to do, as I've spoken before, is to use your wrist effectively when you have, because what happens to you is that you, excuse me, what happens to you is that you tend to be, and it tends to be stuck. You need to be able to loosen your wrist. So would you try that slowly so that we can watch your wrist and see how it moves? Right. So you want to have this, a little bit of this. You see, if you hold your wrist with your hand, with your arm, you hold your arm with your wrist, then you'll feel this motion. There has to be you have to have the flexibility. So make sure you do. Okay. So that's a technique that we will have you develop, okay? And now we have this cadenza, and we often think, okay, we don't want it to be metronomic. We don't want to sound like a computer with no phrasing, but we don't want to be quite so free that you're. So you have to find a middle ground, Douglas, between being totally free with it and being metronomic. Okay, so I'd like you to play that now. Just so I'm going to ask you to start from here. Now you're going to climb the stairs. And then get ready. Okay, so that it has a sense of cadenza-like feeling without distorting the tempo. So Douglas, would you play now from here? Right. Right. So the issue for you, Douglas, is that you tend to play in duples. And I understand that, of course, because you're changing strings. You're going from D and G to now A and D, and now E and A. But it's too obvious because you would never sing that. You would never sing da ba ba da 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 da. You're just doing that because you're afraid of the shift and the string crossing, right? So let's try to be a little bit more courageous with connecting this. So you connect to the next string crossing without taking such a break. Would you try right on that? Right. Now, what if you did this and not? So don't take a break, but. Right. Right. Well, we'll still work on that a little bit more, Douglas, because I'm still hearing. Maybe we should control when we go to the frog and when we don't. So if you start in the middle, and there we're at the frog, because the effect of going to the frog is forcing you to make an unnatural break in the cadenza, okay, in the diminished triad. So if you'll try it once more, and then we'll go on to something else. So that we're starting a little slowly, and then we're in the middle of the bow so that we don't make accents at the frog.
Oh, sorry.
That's better. Yeah, so that's something we'll continue to work on. All right. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit, or I should say the listeners, about the absolute perfection of Mendelssohn's concerto. It's not sacrilegious to say that this is the most perfect of all concertos for violin from this era. First of all, ingenious of Mendelssohn to put the cadenza in the middle of the movement instead of near the end, which is more traditional. And secondly, the nature of the melody itself, the way it curls around and continues is remarkable. He was writing this concerto for the violinist Ferdinand David, who was the concertmaster of the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra. And I believe Mr. David had to wait quite a long time to receive this concerto. Mendelssohn talked about it. He said, I believe he said that I've got an opening melody which all on the E string, which gives me no peace. In other words, it kind of haunts him when he's almost ready to sleep. And that it's a kind of a hypnotic effect, all on the E string, which he noted. He absolutely did not want people to cross strings or anything like that. He said he wanted all on the E string. And so the nature of that melody is rather long, you see, and it defies gravity. The music defies gravity. It continues in its swirling way, and then continues with another element, which is bringing in this rhythm, which is active, you see, and that has some anxiety to it. And then the anxiety is followed by sadness. And then again, anxiety. And then crawling up. And then he brings this, which is quite stentorian in character, which is the counterpart to the beginning of the concerto, which is soft. This time it's forte. And again, it's in the middle of the bar. So the emphasis on the middle of the bar gives the piece even more strength and power. So when you start with quarter notes, half notes, quarter, and then you bring in eighths, that's the end of the phrase, and then it resumes again in the middle. And here's the anxiety of the eighth notes, as we spoke about. Now, finally, when it's forte, he brings a new element, which is triplets. So that quite an energetic and passionate music with the triplets. Like that. So I'm going to see now, I'm seeing that people are having a little trouble hearing me. So I'm got to find out what's going on. It seems that I'm not.
Peter, could you turn on your original sound in the upper left-hand corner of your screen?
Okay, just a minute. Zoom. I'm sorry. Let me just see. Live on YouTube. I don't see anything about me. I'm not muted. Am I mute?
It's the upper left-hand corner. It'll say original sound.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm not seeing that where it says original sound. Sorry, I'm seeing YouTube on YouTube. Let me see. Hold on a second. That's meeting, Zoom US, meeting, view, edit, window, help. I'm sorry, Carolyn, I'm not seeing us. Okay. Install Zoom, hide others. So I love technology when it works. Okay. And on this screen, I'm seeing the Apple's insignia and the Zoom US and meeting. I do not see original sound on this computer. So I'm not quite sure what's going wrong here. Video participants, original sound. Is there another place, Carolyn, where I might find that?
You join using web browser, Peter?
Yes, I just joined as the way I was invited to do that.
Okay. I would say maybe play slightly louder. Then we can work with what we have.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will speak as loudly as I can. I hope that it can be heard. Anyway, as I was speaking about this, the nature of this opening page, you have the triplets, and then you have the octave passage, which is cadenza-like, and there's no orchestra there. And then the orchestra comes in forte, a forte version of what you played in the first page for a little bit. Now, the next section is going to lead to eventually going to lead to the famous second theme, okay? And the second theme, Douglas, what's important to remember is that when you finish here, and then you'll have a beautiful heavenly vibrato, won't you, Douglas? And now when you play this G, it was rather unusual for Mendelson to do this, to play a long extended passage with an open G string. What could he have done? He could have simply had the violin stop, but instead he had the violin play the open G with the woodwind chorale, particularly the clarinet. And so you are playing not just an accompaniment, but a part. You are now a woodwind player. You're actually a horn player. If you were not playing the violin, this G, it would be the horn, French horn. So you have to be a member of a woodwind chorale. And then you get the hairpin where Mendelson marks it. Okay, and then when you finally get to play this melody, your mindset can be, I want to play this more beautifully than the clarinet that just preceded me. Well, you have your vibrato. The clarinet doesn't use vibrato in quite the same way as the violin does. So you're going to use a very specific kind of vibrato. So I would urge you to think this way. Vibrate. See, so that the width of the vibrato increases, intensity vibrato increases, and it calms down. So why don't you try that for a moment? Right. So this was well played. And you see the melody, like the original melody, the second melody is also rather extended. I mean, it starts off in a very square and predictable way. Right, and then you have a rhythm that is particular to Mendelson. You won't hear this really from Beethoven, for example. That rhythm, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-bum. We're going to use that not so much with the bow, but with the left hand. And a long note. Now, as we go, right? Now, I don't know, Douglas, I don't remember if we ever talked about it specifically, but I like to think of playing this piece with piano or with orchestra. And if you're playing with piano, you could use one fingering, and then if you're playing with orchestra, you might have to use another. And why is that? Any idea?
Maybe because it's like sounding different, maybe.
Excuse me? Say again?
Maybe like, I don't know, maybe it sounds different with like when you play with the piano.
Well, when you play with piano, there's a very good chance you're playing in a much smaller hall or room than you play with orchestra. When you play with orchestra, if you play this piece with orchestra, you have, at least 75, 70, 80 musicians on the stage, or, something like that. And you're most likely playing in a rather large space. So I would say this, if it's going to be with orchestra, it's going to be more brilliant fingerings, which are going to sound in a bigger room. So for example, this. That's a very good fingering for playing in a large hall. But if I'm going to play in a smaller hall, a recital hall, I might use a different fingering, which is like this. So what did I do this time?
Shifted to the A string.
That was on the A string the whole time. And being this high on the A string, then you get the almost choked sound of some of the great singers. If you hear Pavarotti when he's singing one of the great arias that he would sing in the opera, you would hear him almost choking the sound. I don't know, the singers obviously have a particular terminology for that, but it's not an open sound, which is brilliant and bright for the E string. especially the metallic E string that we use nowadays, which Mendelson certainly never heard. He never heard a metal E string, but we have it. We love it, especially in big halls. But if I'm playing up here, then I might favor that. But when it comes to fingerings, what I like to do, as you very well know, is try a fingering bowing combination and see how you, as a person learning the piece, react. How you find something, because sometimes I think it's going to be a good situation, a good fingering, good bowing combination, and then when I hear a student play it, it turns out it doesn't suit them. It's like a bad pair of shoes or something. It doesn't, but I keep experimenting with giving you different options and letting you try them and at home and see how they work. You see? So that's one. Now, again, this melody, the second theme, is quite extended. I mean, it's quite, when it starts, it's quite normal. That's all good. But then when it gets longer, and then finally let the clarinet go in again. Finally, the clarinetist had to wait quite a while, but now finally the violin says, okay, Mr. or Miss Clarinet, you can play now. And I've got a counter melody. And then you have this building again, as you did very well. Now there's a subito piano coming up. Here's the subito piano in the orchestra. So even though it doesn't exist in your violin part, we always want you to do, and then subito piano. So give them a moment. Wait a second. Now, what does the fermata mean? It's supposed to pause. So it's not good, Douglas, to do that glissando down. It seems inappropriate. If it's better if you play the harmonic, let the bow come to a stop, and then you resume. And then we can go on from there. Okay. All right. And now, when you got into the cadenza, because I'm going to have to go on to the next person pretty soon, but when you got into cadenza, you need to change your psychology, because a cadenza has to have a certain amount of freedom. Now, this cadenza was written out by Mendelson. Okay, so you have more freedom than you think. And then in other words, you have more freedom than you think, and it can be a little bit slower, a little bit faster, and then you have. And then you start again from which you did all that very well. But there's a tendency, Douglas, which we have to fight, to be metronomic, because if I do a Douglas, it'll sound like this. What do you think, Professor? What's wrong with that?
You can only take time on some of the notes.
Right. Didn't it sound a little bit like you have a train to catch?
Yeah.
Right? So what we're going to want to do is find a way to enjoy this music and not give the sense of beatiness, you see? So instead of instead of that, we want to change, we want to take advantage of each particular aspect of this, which is one, the trill. Now here's the motive. And then enjoy that tenth. You see, it's not just, it's not a tenth, it's a 12th. And then now, ever since Mendelson wrote this concerto, all kinds of wonderful violinists have been playing this cadenza and finding their own way to find a way to feel this music. So with the arpeggiation and the different keys we're going into, and the special feeling that one has when listening to it, when playing it. So I'm going to ask you to continue experimenting. We'll continue experimenting with different ways of pacing this, feeling the harmonies, and creating an atmosphere that is your own atmosphere, Douglas. It doesn't need to be mine. Okay, so you have this now. You have isn't that beautiful? You see, now some people take more time, some people take a little less time, but we're going to experiment with this so it feels like your own. Now, then at this point, Mendelson does something else. He brings in an aspect of the modern bow, which was in use by the time this concerto was written, and that is the bounce. And I find this to be a particularly magical place, because on one hand, the Mendelson asks the violinist to play with the ricochet bowing. And meantime, he brings in the orchestra piano almost hesitantly, because after you do this for 4 measures, then the orchestra comes in. But the orchestra comes in, as I said, in a very quiet, kind of tentative way. Well, this was something that Mozart did, that Beethoven did. I just heard a few days ago the third Beethoven piano concerto up at Tanglewood, and sure enough, at the end of the cadenza, Beethoven brings in the orchestra in a very quiet, mysterious way, and it's obviously Mendelson learned that from Mr. Beethoven, among others. So that is now you are accompanying the orchestra with your ricochet bowing. And then it becomes more passionate, and then it's going to lead to the last 2 pages, which I think we're going to talk about more in your lesson, which is going to be obviously very soon. But these are some of the points that I'd like to talk about when I'm working, well, not only with you, but also talking to an audience, which includes many, many countries and many opinions. So at this point, I think there are some interesting questions in the chat. Carolyn, are you still there?
Of course, I'm always here.
Oh, yes. So I saw in the chat some lovely and interesting questions, particularly from Professor Fisk about the bow itself. So if you want to just read that question, and then we'll talk about it a bit.
Sure. Mendelssohn's bow was assuredly different from the modern bow. How did the construction of his bow affect the articulation of up and down bow? How would this have contrasted the automatic effect, weight, etc. of the modern version?
Right. Well, the modern bow, also known as the Tourte style bow, Tourte, in honor of the greatest genius of bow making, Francois Tourte. That bow was very much in use by the time this concerto was written. We can understand during Beethoven's time that there were, the orchestra, Beethoven orchestras, they had a mixture, and that must have been a kind of a mess when you had Baroque bows and then period bows, which are predecessors to the Tour style bow. But by the time we get to 1800, that's a particularly interesting date, not just because it has a couple of zeros in it, but because by that time, the famous Paris Conservatory was established. It was something that came out of, actually, in a sense, it came out of the French Revolution. And the Paris Conservatory, when it came to string playing and violin playing, included some names that we know and love. For example, Gavinier, who was an old man by that time. But then there's Kreutzer and Rode and other composers, violinists and professors who wrote etudes and obviously many concertos, which are not played. But the etude books, particularly Kreutzer's and Rode, and later Jacob Don't, those books show us how the modern bow was then being incorporated into their etudes, whether it was up bow staccato or a more martelé stroke, because after all, this part of the bow was now strengthened. This, though, what the English call the hatchet or the point or the tip. This is much bigger and stronger than the bows that preceded Mr. Tourt. So this having this large a point, a tip or a hatchet, enabled the violinist to sustain the sound down at this point of the bow. That sostenuto was not possible with period bows and transitional bows and the bows that were used during Mozart's time. But the strength of the bow was now able to help a violinist play a second theme like that. I can play down there and still have a sound in a larger concert hall. So it's a combination of factors. One, the bow was already in use, the modern bow, by the time this concerto was written. Etude books from the Paris Conservatory, including Kreutzer's famous 42 etudes, were teaching us how to play martelé, up bow, down bow. So it was almost like a Kreutzer's masterclass in the use of the new bow, new at the time. As I mentioned during talking with Douglas, the downside of that is that the frog, which is this part here, was strengthened and enlarged, and therefore there was a great tendency for people to play heavy at the frog and then lighter and then too weak at the tip. So they had to learn how to even out the pressure of the arm to accommodate the potential for the tip, which is obviously quite crucial importance. So when you think about Beethoven's concerto from 1806, all of the concertos were written after Beethoven's concerto until Mendelssohn's, which are mostly lost to posterity, except for Paganini's concertos. The Mendelssohn would be, you would have to say, the first truly significant concerto in terms of musical quality. Now, I know I'm going to be in trouble with the Paganini crowd, but certainly Mendelssohn's contribution from 1845, 1844 is nowadays considered the most significant concerto after Beethoven's and before the Brahms concerto. And strangely enough, Max Bruch's concerto in G minor, the glorious G minor Bruch, was quite in fashion in the turn of the next century, which means 1900. If you looked at concert programs from 1900 as opposed to 2000, you would see lots of Mendelssohn, Beethoven, and Brahms, and quite a lot of Bruch. Anyway, there's another question from Professor Fisk about the G string. Yes, can you read that, Carolyn?
Absolutely. So Professor Fisk mentions, would Mendelssohn's G string not have been a gut string? And would that sound not have blended even more with the woodwind chorale?
It's a wonderful point, Professor Fisk. Absolutely, that G string, that a strong G string that we have now, which violinists love, didn't exist back then. It was a gut string, as was everything else. The E string was gut, and certainly these gut strings were softer. And I would even go so far as to say that the violin itself had to go through a change. The scroll of the violin, as you see the scroll here, is attached to this neck part, and this is not original. This was changed. This scroll has been grafted onto a new and bigger and longer neck, which allowed the violin to achieve more sound. The bass bar inside, under the G string, was also enlarged to make the instrument louder. And then you had these strings, the modernization of the strings, so that when we come to 1900, 1910, people start transitioning from the gut strings to the metallic strings or the combination strings. The materials are changing now, even again, from where they were. But the G string was softer, and it would have blended more with the woodwind, just as Professor Fisk surmised. I mean, I wasn't there, but we can believe that the gut strings would not have projected as much. Now, a violinist doesn't want to blend so much because we're soloists after all in the concerto. We want our sound to stand out. Even so, the G string can, if it's not played too loudly, can blend very nicely with the woodwind chorale. What I see with students is, in general, the G string is played too softly because people don't know what to do with this open G. What do? You see, you have to understand your role within the woodwind chorale. But that said, it would be interesting to hear this piece on all gut strings. Maybe better on a recording than in a live concert, because after all, the concert halls are bigger now than they were during Mendelssohn's time. The other really important point, of course, is the E string itself. The metallic E string creates quite a discordant sound, and we have to be very careful how we use the open E string, particularly with solo Bach. It's mostly a situation that you have to go online and get a E string that is not metallic, that has a softer edge to it. Otherwise, you're going to struggle quite a bit in playing solo Bach, where there are places where it's obviously you want to have the open string, but you don't want that metallic sound, right? And one more point before we go on, and that is the Eugène Ysaÿe's famous 6 sonatas for violin solo. You will see in the music quite a few fingerings from Ysaÿe himself, where he likes the open E string, and students do that, and I cringe because Ysaÿe never played a metallic E string. He played on gut E strings, and so when he writes a zero, an open E string, he's not hearing what nowadays we hear. And so I very often encourage my students not to use the open E string if it's jarring in any way. In other words, to make it blend better with the A string and D string, especially the A string. So these are all interesting, fascinating points, which have to do with the instrument itself, the usage, the modernization of the bow, the modernization of the strings, the strengthening of the instrument via the neck angle connected to the body of the instrument. Very interesting topics, which we should address in another class, I think, probably with a luthier who would be able to give the lowdown on all of these changes and how they would have affected performances. So Douglas, I want to thank you for playing for us today. It's your very first time playing a class, and I'm very glad you were able to participate.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the next person we will have is going to be Muriel Oberhofer, and Muriel, I think if we'd start off just speaking a little bit about, your station in life, where you are right now, where you study, and a little bit of background for people who don't know you.
I'm Muriel. I am from Switzerland. I'm currently in Switzerland. I study in London though at the Royal Academy of Music with Nicolas Miller, and I previously studied with Claudia Sahachi, who's concertmaster of the Tonhalle Orchestra Zurich. I'm currently in my bachelor's degree, third year. So I'll
And why don't you tell people a little bit about what we used to do previous to pandemic in terms of lessons?
I would usually, when my term ended, I'd take a plane to Boston and have intensive lessons with Peter for 2 weeks, and then, enjoy Christmas at home. But yes, that was pre-pandemic.
Yes, that's right. And, pre-pandemic, I was not a great believer in the value of online lessons. I had to say, prior to March 2020, I was not a fan, a proponent of this style of teaching. And boy, was I wrong. I'm so glad to say that it's very possible to make wonderful progress with talented musicians online, especially if the student and teacher have a prior knowledge of each other from in-person lessons. It's obviously harder when the student and teacher are never met in person. But when there's a prior knowledge, then we can make progress, as no doubt we have. So, Muriel, tell us what you're going to play today.
I'll play Saint-Saëns Introduction al Rondo Capriccioso.
Okay, so we'll imagine the piano part.
Yes, I'm sorry, no piano today.
Okay, no piano today. We didn't get a pianist in your flat or your house in Switzerland.
Right.
Bravo. Bravo. Okay. So Muriel, I'm delighted to hear this. It's the first time that I recall hearing you play this.
Yeah.
And so how do I know that? Because there are many things I want to talk about that I think are of some value that you haven't considered yet, right? Now, remind me for a second, who have you played this for?
My previous teacher in Switzerland, and then I think once at a masterclass.
Right. Have you played this with piano?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But it was a while ago. Like
Right. Because
5 years
one of the
ago.
things that needs to happen is we need to get you with piano tout de suite.
Yeah, that will happen next week.
Yes. Yes. And why am I saying that, do you think?
I probably take time where I shouldn't.
Well, there's quite a few liberties.
Yeah.
And I don't like to use the word shouldn't and don't and all of those things.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
rather use the positive way of looking at it. I want to try to help you with the cultural aspect of this piece. Okay. The timing, the pacing, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the first things that I would tell you is I actually want you to open your mouth and breathe and feel the respiration when your mouth is slightly open. Because what happened when you started is that it was all coming through your nose and it was rather short. And I felt like you were not as free to feel the music because your respiration was coming totally through your nose. Okay. Now you don't have to be, theatrical about it, but feel the breath, because obviously the beginning of this piece, for one thing, it takes a little bit of getting used to in terms of what Saint-Saëns wants you to do in terms of your breath, right? Because there's an almost gasping quality to the beginning of this, right? I mean, no sooner do you play the first two notes, but you have to rest. You have to. Right? Now, I'm exaggerating, of course, because that's what teachers do. But you can't, obviously, you don't want to have. You've got to feel the rest, right? And even the way the Saint-Saëns sets you up before you even play, right? You got a little harp and strings, and then you have that, and then you come in with a sad story, a sad tale, all right? So one of the things I want to encourage you to do is feel the continuing beat and the connections while you're also playing the rests. And if you open your mouth and breathe. Right. So, Muriel, your uptakes, your downbows, your downtakes are fine, but your upbows are a little bit heavy, right? But that can be, so it's eighths, then, see what I'm saying? The upbows have to be faster and lighter. Right. So good. I want you to think about the relationship between the A and the E, and then F, C, and F. Now, whether you take the bow off the string, probably not, but how do you feel? So once I give myself a respiration to play the rest, notice I say play the rest, it's a favorite of mine. You have to play the rests well. So, and then just even this, Muriel. Don't disappear, don't. Okay, now what if you were to actually move sooner? Go. I didn't hear that A. Right. Right. So let's see if we can find a fingering that has more energy, because this is a little bit, I'm trying to find a word that fits that. It sounds a little bit heavy.
Okay.
So what if we don't do there you go. Now, even more important than that is look at my left hand. What I'm employing here is a fast, nervous vibrato. And articulate with the bow as well. Right. Right. By doing that, we have developed some kind of anxiety, right? Because you've got this eighth situation, right? And if I was writing it, I might have written. Fortunately, Saint-Saëns wrote it. I get to play it. Yeah. But look at what happens rhythmically. We have two eighths. And I might even have a tiny glissando. Can you hear it?
Barely.
Tiny glissando. It's over the internet, you don't really hear it. But I'm trying to connect, not to play, but to connect the two notes. Now, so the bow does, and the left hand vibrates. See? Right. Now, once again, this, obviously you did it better than that, but I might yet try another fingering entirely, which is, so these are things to experiment, because one of the things I love about this piece, it's absolutely one of the greatest masterpieces of the short story genre. It's a short story, and it's got so much character in it, right? And so I'm always thinking, okay, what kind of vibrato, what kind of characteristic do I have in my left hand? Kind of a slow, And then a faster vibrato, not more bow. I don't want any of that. I want a small bow. I might even pick it up. Or not. But for sure, I want. And maybe the bow doesn't have to do. Maybe it can be smooth, but your left hand is very active. Right? Now, when you play this A, good luck with your pinky, right? Your pinky is going to have a wide vibrato. It's very good exercise. And that one is long. We have short, long, short, now long, sustain. And what's happening to the bow at the end, those little notes? Think. Long and then articulate. Right. Right. I know we're in the weeds right now, which is a bit hard for our audience, but just working with you now, I want this. I don't want to stop the bow. I don't want to stop it. I just want to slow it down and slow it down and articulate. And with those fingers right on the stick, you see? That's right. And all of this character, we have to find a way to do in a tempo.
Yeah.
That is not lugubrious, right? We don't want it to be so, we want a tear in our eye, but we don't want to be sobbing. Okay? The great characteristic of Saint-Saëns' music is the modesty of it. It's not hard on your sleeve, it's hard in your pocket. Okay? So always keep the rhythmic integrity, right? And don't let yourself get into bathos as opposed to pathos. So, you see those eighths? They have modesty and class. Not, and for goodness sake, don't do, right? We don't want what we call bananas in the long notes because they make your teachers bananas. What did I do with the bow? You see, I played with sustained, with as wide a vibrato as I possibly can by opening the hand, as we've spoken about in other pieces. And the flexing of the wrists. Play. See, and that to me will be a classy approach. Mm-hmm. So play from here and go on. Right. Now, that's fine. There is nothing wrong with letting the bow decay. Mm-hmm. And then another sentence. Now. Right. Right. But now your rhythm is quite inventive.
Sorry.
That's why I told you need a pianist right away. Right away, Muriel. Okay, so Muriel, I'm a fan of that fingering. I like it very much. But if you're going to do that kind of fingering up in the D string, what am I doing with the left hand? You see how much vibrato I'm putting in every single note? A tremendous amount. So think Charles Aznavour. Think Edith Piaf. Think of the torch singers in France and how they would sing if they're going to play up here on the D string with it, which has no resonance. It's dead. It's no use to go up there. Right. That's it. Absolutely. That's exactly right. Because here you are going up in a dangerous part of the violin where there's no register, there's no resonance much at all, almost no resonance. But you're going to compensate with bow pressure and a lot of vibrato. Because what did Sanson write? He writes a quintuplet, right? It's genius because he could have written something. He could have written, but he wrote quintuplet. So it's got to have a lot of stuff in it. It's got to have a lot of character. If you're going to play the D string, get a little pressure with the bow and lots of vibrato. Yes. Right. So this is good from a practice tempo point of view, right? But when you play with piano, of course, it's going to be a little bit faster, right? And it's going to have that kind of classy reticence that's very important to this. I remember once doing a class where the student was slobbering all over it. And it made me sick, honestly. It made me ill. Now, of course, you would never do that, but is so completely wrong-headed. This music has to have something in your pocket, right? So you want to express all of these wonderful emotions, but they have to have reticence. Now, for one time, he gave you which you played correctly. It's a one and only triplet, right? Another thing to consider, as I spoke to Douglas, where are you playing this? Are you playing with orchestra or are you playing with piano? If you play with orchestra, you might have to consider I have a wonderful student who played this with the Boston Pops this year. And she has a fairly small pinky. And this was not going to happen. It was not happening. We ended up in the E string. It was marvelous. Or second position. But that E string is quite beautiful. On some violins more beautiful than others. We understand. But always keep your mind open to possibilities that you may not have thought about playing at the E string, and that's a counterpoint to this. And always make that a kind of a rubato, because he wrote in that quintuplet, right? So when you sing it, da, 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 it has, very interesting character. Now we can go on and you play the end and you close this chapter of the short story and the end. Now, show me your beautiful bowing. asking myself, when you go from A minor to C major, why would you go in A minor and then C major, you're going to the A string?
I don't know.
It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense because the C major is affirmative.
Yes.
So shouldn't that be on the E string?
Yes.
What do you think? Why don't you try? Right. So that's a joyful G in C major. So if I'm going to do it up bow just like you, but I'm going to push the bow. Push the bow. Right. Rhythm. What's that rhythm? What's that rhythm? Not.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, because what the rhythm Zazofsky wrote is so much more interesting than one you're playing. Triplets. Now, I don't know about you, but when I play this C, the G on this E string, I feel joy. Now, what do I feel now? I feel regret. A moment of joy and then regret. Can you do that?
Yeah, try.
Right, and eventually that's good. It's going to be faster, right? Right. I'm sorry to complain because you have a wonderful G string on your fine violin, but you don't want to be crude. You did.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. Shouldn't it be piano?
Probably.
Yeah. So let's be a little bit more modest and less Sion Tiwa Varga competition. A little bit more. And so let's not project that so much. Right. Okay. So I think that's marvelous to be a little bit sneakier, right? And not just loud, I got a G string. Now, our next question, Muriel. When you go to the G string, which I absolutely do, of course you go to G string. Are you doing because you love the glissando or because you love the sonority of the G string?
The sonority, but the glissando was a bit too big. So
yeah, I like the way you say that. Was a bit too big, just a bit. Maybe your bit for me was like that.
It was an accident.
Yes, but you did it twice, my dear.
It was twice an accident.
Excellent. So what I would like you to do, since you've already told me you're more interested in the sonority of the G string than the glissando, and I'm awfully glad you said that, why don't we stretch our hand?
Yeah.
That's right. So look what's going to happen when as soon as I play the E. Open. Okay. Now, let's say we're not going to glissando. Let's say don't glissando, just find it. Okay, so as an exercise. very good. Okay, so I would experiment with trying to play without the glissando. It'll be hard for you. It'll be hard for you, but it's worth trying. And concentrate. Right. Now, let's talk about vibrato for a moment. Look what I'm going to do here. So what you notice is that, oh my God, he didn't vibrate the B at all. Right? So by not vibrating the B, I get a kind of a morbid sound, which is pretty cool because of that harmony. See? So instead of just playing pretty, we heard already that, right? And then we expect. Instead, he gives us. And look at your piano part and look at that harmony, man. It's something special. And when something's special, you want people to listen to it. And in this case, you can make them listen by not using the same old pretty vibrato, but rather no vibrato. This is equivalent of my telling you to try on a certain pair of shoes. You're the one who has to decide if the shoes fit and look good, right? So it could very well be that what I love with that D, that G string B without vibrato is never going to sit well with you. And that's fine. See, I propose, you dispose.
Yeah.
In this case, you might dispose of my little non-vibrato B and say, that's him, that's not me. And that's wonderful. I'm very happy to show you ideas that you can then decide I like, I don't like, right? I think you'll agree with me that this is more dramatic if you don't need to make the glissando. But then one thing I'm sure about, whether you vibrate or not, is the contact. Right? So now what happened? The flowers come out and you're in the field having a picnic on a nice summer day and you're enjoying your life in the meadow in Switzerland where you sent those gorgeous pictures. And there's a lake and there's trees and sweet. And then you're enjoying yourself and eventually you have to come down the mountain. Right? So after this morbid, now vibrate and enjoy your beautiful day in the park. So that's wonderful. Can you play it so that you don't sound so careful?
Sorry.
Well, right. But you know what sounds careful? This sounds careful. I don't think so. So watch this. 1, 2, 1 harmonic. Then After all, you did this. You didn't do, right? So since you played this on one string, why not this on one string? See? Then, yes, of course. There's a harmonic waiting for you, Muriel.
Sorry.
All of a sudden, Mr. Sanson says, cross the border, he's now in Spain. Right? After all of this filigree, almost Moorish. Right? See, so one night I had a dream and Sanson came to me in my dream and he said, you know, I forgot to put a forte piano, but I should have. It's very dramatic, you see? And I changed the bow. Nobody hears the bow change. All I hear is, and now you can do. And then you have the dramatic chord. Right. If you're going to change the bow, don't change on a beat, because then we hear it. Right. So these are just pointers on the first page. You see? Well, you're used to this sort of thing, but the audience is probably aghast. Oh my God, you're giving her so many things, but I only do it because you're used to it, right? And look, culturally, rhythmically, your sensitivity to harmony and rhythm, that's what's going to make a great performance of this piece, right? And of course, your own original feelings about it. But we can't be artists before a craftsman. That's why I'm insisting on right rhythms. When they're triplets, they're triplets. When they're duples, they're duples, right? And so I think it's very good for you to have a little more of a disciplined approach, which will naturally happen when you find your pianist next week. Because if your pianist is kind, it does you a favor, he or she will say, no, Muriel, you can't. You mustn't, right? And you'll get fixed up. I mean, I might very well end up seeing you in a FaceTime with the pianist. Who knows?
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So before I need to go on to Nana and Faust Fantasy, I just want to mention this is a very spicy theme for a rondo. And I have still nightmares of my teachers not allowing me to play that incorrect rhythmically. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? You did it fine. I just have such a memory of playing. I don't know what's wrong with my syncopation, right? Now, this note obviously is a weak beat. Now, so what I do is I connect it. You see, so that helps, you see. Now, the other thing is that you did this. No, you don't have to do that. You have to play, you have to give the A its value. Right. Right. And so you have to find a way to turn your wrist so that you don't make a nasty. Yes. Yes. I mean, this is almost cinematic, this music. You tell such a story. You can make up your own story, right? It's a sneaky person who's doing all this, right? He's saying, not me, I'm innocent. I really am. I didn't do it. It's almost Eulenspiegel, right? It's got that kind of Eulenspiegel character, right? So, and the contrast between the triplets and the syncopation and that should be a delicious French glissando, which means with the old finger. Yeah, oh, wonderful. Yes. Right, never crude, never, well, you didn't do that. So just to say that we never want to be crude. We always want to play with class, this music, right? And I liked what you did. That was wonderful. And I was very happy with your staccato and that you played the right rhythm because, as you know, almost all recordings.
That's why I have nightmares about my teacher telling me to play the right rhythm. This is my place.
Yes, but you see, your teacher did you a great service because you were able to play it correct rhythm. Which is why when I see this fingering and the people harmonic, there's no earthly way to play that harmonic in time, right? So you would, right? So I was very happy to see that, okay? All right, so listen, I think I should go on. I mean, I know we'll be looking at this sometime in the future to go on, but obviously this is, you know, it's a great joy to learn this piece and play it. I mean, I've been playing it for many decades, you know, and I still get a thrill when you play it and when I play it, you know, just the music itself is so marvelous and so distinctive, right? There's really no piece like it. It's unique in the literature. It's a great piece and played a lot for a reason. So I'm so happy you're doing it, and I'm looking forward to hearing it again.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Muriel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Cheers. Oh, okay. Nana, thanks for waiting.
It's no problem. I'm very happy to have this opportunity.
Yes, thank you. And tell everyone listening from near and far, just a little bit about your background.
I'm 16 years old and I'm born in Romania. I am currently studying here at the NS School, Music High School.
Wonderful. And so you had the opportunity to play for Professor Muriciano. Did you play for her live or only online?
Only online, sadly.
Sadly, but she was very enthusiastic and she told me, oh, wait till you hear this Nana. So I'm so glad to hear you today. And I presume we'll work tomorrow as well for our online lesson. So tell us what you're going to play. I'm
going to be playing Wieniawski's Faust Fantasy.
Okay. I don't know if we have time to hear the whole piece. So at some point, I may have to wave at you.
It's okay.
But I look forward to hearing it. So the floor is yours. Okay, great. I'm really sorry to cut you off here at this point, Nana, but we're going to work more, obviously tomorrow. And I think there's plenty of material there for us to talk about. Okay. I know that you had already a lesson. I see Carolyn, who's going to tell me that there's not much time left, right?
No, the opposite. I'm going to tell you if you want to run over with Nanan, that's okay.
Well, thank you, because I really cannot think of a better thing to do than to run over these things with Nana. And I'm glad if I'm not cut off by artificial time. So, let's just work on this and people can decide when they've had enough of it. But Nana, thank you, Carolyn. That's great. Nana, I want to talk to you about some of the things that Professor Murciano talked to you about already. And I promise you that we did not get together by phone and say, aha, we're going to ruin poor Nana, who's a wonderful player, No, we're going to add to your library of abilities, okay?
Yeah.
I have a special fondness for this piece, the Faust Fantasy, because it was a piece that I played when I was your age. Well, actually, you're younger, but I played it in some competitions. And it was always very well received because when I played it, we're talking about late 70s and early 80s, it was not a popular piece then. It was not getting played. The Carmen Fantasy of Sarasate was played all the time. And this particular fantasy of Wieniawski was really neglected. So when I started playing it, the jury members were always so happy because it is a piece they had learned as children. And now to hear somebody sort of reviving the piece, which was definitely worthy of being played again, it made the jury members, who I didn't even know, so happy. They would be smiling, and after the competition, they would say, I'm so glad you played the Faust, because I think they were tired of the Carmens, right? So anyway, to play this piece, I want you to think like a diva. I want you to put modesty in the closet and think of yourself as a prima donna assoluta on the stage, just like your marvelous Professor Murciano, who is a prima donna assoluta. When she's on the stage, man, it's a great event, okay? Before she ever plays a note, okay? And that is a characteristic of the way to play this music, to feel this music. You are on stage. The orchestra does their introduction, and they're setting the table for you to play a most beautiful, gorgeous, shining E. I hope it's a fourth finger, but if it has to be another, it still has to be gorgeous. It has to be that. It can't be, and see, because that's too pale. Remember, your prima donnas don't like to sit around, right? So by the time you get to play, you should feel like, enough with this. I'm very impatient. It's my turn, and I'm going to make you listen to me. Even if you start with a small vibrato and then warm it up. Okay, so even I can tell a lot from performance how they play that E and the A. Right? Did you hear the glissando? It was pretty subtle, right? Did you hear it? So I found a way, and there was a tiny little, if you listen to it, because I'm obsessed with connecting and not simply playing, right? It's a little bit what I just told Muriel about this, right? It's not, and this is not either. It happens to be the same two notes, coincidentally. So show me, Nana, the vibrato that comes from heaven. Right. Okay. So we certainly know that Vinyavsky never heard that modern E string. I'm not sure he would have wanted to. So let's consider something else. If you play with a slow bow and then you warm it up. Right? So if you don't want that, I think I want the A string. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, and then, of course, we want the glory of the violin. Certainly Vinyavsky knew about that.
So,
Okay, now if you were to do this, 1, 1, 2, see, and it's not a shift, Nana. This is nothing. But the 2 gets you to third position, so you can enjoy. See, then 1, 2. So now third position. See, give it a shot. Okay, so Nana, tell me your honest opinion. You like that better or not? I'm not offended if you don't.
I do actually, because I've gotten a lot of opinions on this.
Right, and it's very confusing to get a lot of opinions, right? Everybody has their opinion. So my opinion is that this is too plain. Too plain for me. So that's why I like that A string. And of course you're alone, so there's no balance issue. It's only a matter of color and what you want. So if you like that, and this tritone, oh, it's marvelous, right? I mean, I much prefer, and then to me, that's antiseptic. But this, and obviously, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about the beauty of the sound that you can create, and your vibrato and your bow, the way your bow presses and the vibrato, they work together beautifully. Right. Now, do you consider this passage to be exciting?
Not really.
I don't. I don't think it's exciting. So if you want to do something like take a lot of time here and then go I feel like, she's trying to make something exciting out of something that is very calm. So something kind of placid. So I'm not going to run away. First of all, I'm not going to take a lot of time because I don't understand that. I think Wieniawski's made a whole one piece out of this, okay? So if you try it once more without any jerking forward, and let me see if you can do this. Look, this is your vibrato right now. Now what happens if you put your first finger up in the air and get a wider palette here? So experiment with that, getting that first finger way back. Right. Okay. So what do you think of what I'm telling you?
I understand.
Has anybody ever asked you to do that before?
Not really. Usually professors like me to keep my finger down.
Right. Oh, yes. Keep your fingers down. You're a good student. But you know what? You're an artist. Make yourself an artist. An artist can break rules sometimes. And what we're interested in is making your fourth finger into a wider vibrato. Okay? If you're going to use the fourth finger, and I certainly think you should, then I would like the vibrato to be more like your third finger. If you did a third finger, play a third finger, you'll see. Oh, listen to that, the way the vibrato goes. Now do that with a fourth finger, you see? Right. Right. Because after all, the diva is now making her very first entrance, her very first sound, and it has to be from heaven. So I like your hand to be like this, Nana. Open and vibrated and loose. You see? Oh, yes. Wonderful. Now, once you get there, and I know we'll go on, but if you want to go to 2, because you were not comfortable with 1, 1, 2, you weren't comfortable. I could see that. So what you can do is put your second finger on B, stretch the 4, and then open your hand and vibrate, and then go to 2. Then 2, 1, 3. See if you like that.
And now,
Yeah, see, I don't know about you, but I feel pretty bad with that fourth finger. So 2, 1, 2. And you can use your elbow if you want. Shift. Shift, a little shift. Uh-huh. Okay. Why don't you go on? Okay. Remember, better sharp than out of tune. The top note, the B flat, it was just this side on the flat side. We want to avoid that. So you can experiment with a 3 and then 3 again. And this shift. Right? You can't play with the bow until your finger's there, right? So go ahead from the G. Good. Okay, now one little thing will help you. When you play the A, then the next finger, the B flat, can be a 1. Can you do that? 1, 1, 4? Yeah, isn't that easier?
Yeah.
So enjoy the turn. See, that'll set you up very nicely. You need an anchor. Here's your anchor. Look. There's your anchor. That B flat. Sit on that down bow. Okay, so it could be that the fingering is very peculiar to me. Try it once more. Okay, well, we'll talk about that fingering tomorrow because I'm a little bit more of a believer in hand position. And so therefore, I would favor this. Look at that. So if you play an E flat with a 1 and then a G with a 3 and the 4th finger, that to me makes sense. This stretching up to the 2 and 3 is extremely dangerous and you have to practice it a lot. I don't want you to practice this a lot, Nana. I want you to have a fingering that works and then you don't have to practice it. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
So nice. You want a fingering that follows your basic hand shape. And here's your shape. So it's 1, 3, 4, not 1, 2, 3. Right. Right. Correct. Correct. Try it slowly. Okay, so we'll try tomorrow, but I think that when you shift to B flat to E flat. Why would I follow a shift with an extension? That's too much for me. Once I shift, I want to just stay there. So you understand, hand position, 1, 3, 4. 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 4. My hand is just perfectly set up. Then right, and you can play that with a 3 if you prefer, but the point is your hand position is good up to that point. So let's go on because I know this is very nerdy. Or down, up. Go ahead. Now, there's a problem with what you did. Not violinist playing, but musical understanding. This is a kind of a cadenza. And then the piano goes. So you can't make that huge retard. Okay? Doesn't work musically. So just try. It's more straightforward. once you play the E, Nana, not because the piano's da da dee bum bum ba da da. So you really, once you play, you have to move along. Ba-da-dum, and then you play ba-ya-dum. Okay, so I wonder, why would you shift down to the F on the E string only to shift up to the E? No, the question is, where did that fingering come from? Was that from a professor or one you made up on your own?
It's from a professor.
Okay, well, it's very interesting to see how professors disagree, right? And in the end, you're going to take all the professors that you studied with, and you're going to decide yes, no. You're going to take a little bit from one, and a little bit from the other, right?
Yeah.
So, but I myself, I can't imagine this. To go down here and then up again. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I want A string, 2, 2. Not, in the end, it's your intelligence that's going to decide what you're going to take and what you're going to reject from all of us professors. Okay? So that's just my opinion. So once you get this, I would also down bow. Look at how dramatic that is, Nana. So try starting down bow. Yeah, so if you did that. I mean, did you even notice my change of bow? I hope you didn't. I hope you hardly noticed it. Because I have more power and more freedom. But anyway, then I love this tritone. Now I used to do, but then I failed, so I stopped it, and I do now what you do. And then try 2, 2. Okay, so one more time. And it's very dramatic, isn't it? To pick up the bow and then down bow. That's what a prima donna would do.
So should I change?
Okay, so what I was thinking was this. Then
No.
right. So no, it's like I said to Muriel, maybe it's a pair of shoes that don't fit you very well. Why don't you just try one bow, then up bow, then now up bow. So Okay, so Nana, would you rather end up bow or down bow?
I think down bow.
Uh-huh, I agree. Now, when you play all these E's, you got to know what the piano part goes. Right? So it's not just a bunch of E's. It's, you know, part of the piano fabric or the orchestra fabric, right? So when you play here, wouldn't it be nice if you make a diminuendo?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Mm. Yeah. No, piano. Then you have down bow, of course. And then you end the introduction. Now you finally get to play a melody, right? Now the character of this melody, how would you describe it?
Of this melody?
This melody. How would you describe it?
It's, I don't know, it's a bit nostalgic for me.
A wonderful word. I love it. Nostalgic. Right. So I don't want to play it. I don't want to go. Right. I want to play it with nostalgia. I love that word. So with some reticence, with some nostalgia. Like long ago, I was so happy. I remember when I was a child. Right? It's a simple tune. But always with nostalgia and some like almost dreamy feeling, right? So you don't want your bow to be, right? You want to more bow speed and less pressure. So just try that, and I think we're going to wrap up. Okay, so here's the last thing I want to tell you. We want a vibrato that is continuous. The bow can decay. The bow can be playing like this. And then you can lose the focus. You can play, but the vibrato continues. The vibrato continues. It does not stop or slow down. It just keeps going, even though your bow is decayed. Okay, that was really beautiful. I love the way you played that, and especially the way you played that top C sharp. It was beautiful. It was magical. You see, you did, and you got a wonderful. So that gives me such a wonderful feeling to hear you play that. Okay. Okay. So look, I'm gonna have to wrap it up now because another student's gonna show up. But I really like your playing, and I'm looking forward to work tomorrow.
I am too. Thank you so much.
And so thank you for playing today. And thanks for waiting because it was a long class. Okay.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Nana. And so we'll figure out the time tomorrow, but that's great.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Peter. Do you have any parting words for our audience before we close out today?
I don't have words of wisdom about things that are not related to music. And I'm always asking myself when playing a string instrument, how would we sing? I very often ask my students, please sing this. And some of my students just will sing, but some would rather die than sing. But at some point, singing, string players become sometimes very self-conscious about singing. And so then I threaten my students and I say, if you don't sing, you're going to have to listen to me sing. And that's terrible. So I think I'd rather listen to you sing, because when we sing, we very often phrase very well. But then when we take this ridiculous bow and ridiculous string instrument with all the difficulties involved, we kind of forget how we must sing, and we must make the bow vibrato and all the pressure, speed, sounding point, and the width of vibrato or no vibrato. We have so many choices. As a cellist, there are so many decisions and choices you have to make. All right. And the joy of thinking about those choices relating to your understanding and feeling for the music. That's something that takes a lifetime. And I'm glad to still be thinking about these things through very often through the wonderful playing of these students here. I get to think again about this glorious music that we have, our heritage, as we say.
Beautifully said, Peter. Thank you so much for a wonderful class today, and congratulations to our students as well. Nana, Muriel, and Douglas. You all played beautifully, and especially virtually. It's not the easiest thing to put yourself out there and to play. So bravi, congratulations, and thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's violin masterclass. Tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are having a vocal masterclass, The Art of Vocal Acting, so portraying characters in opera with Jay Lessinger. So that is tonight at 5 p.m. and we hope to see you there. And thank you all so much for joining us today.